So the Alabama Crimson Tide take on the Texas A&M Aggies this weekend in a matchup that many before the season would have said this was one of the premier games within the SEC in the 2021 season. However, I had my reservations about this game, and now that the week is here, my reservations have been confirmed. But we still need to talk about this game because there are some matchups that could answer some questions and prove to be intriguing. Before we do, as always, y'all know the drill. I want to hear from you. Hop down to the comments. Give me an A for Alabama or a T for Texas A&M. Who do you think wins this game, and what do you think the end score will be? If you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe, hit that bell notification. I do constant college football content. You don't want to miss any of it. And if you enjoyed this content, be sure to like and comment down below. Those interactions, though small, are massive to content creators such as myself in getting picked up and maintained by the YouTube algorithm. But with all that being said, let's get right into this. And first and foremost, I had my reservations about Texas A&M going into this year. And it really didn't solely boil down to replacing a quarterback. Anytime you replace a quarterback that had been as successful as Kellen Mond was at Texas A&M, it's going to be tough. That goes without saying. My biggest issue for the Aggies going into this year was replacing that quarterback while having to replace an offensive line that was phenomenal last year. At least Alabama got the benefit of bringing some guys back that got legitimate good experience, and then individuals such as Evan Neal. Texas A&M had to replace everybody except one individual in that offensive line, and it's been a unit that has really struggled. In fact, the past 3 games, they have allowed 3 sacks each. And against Arkansas, we saw multiple quarterback hurries, multiple tackles for loss, and once again, those 3 sacks. So that was my biggest worry in the offseason about Texas A&M, was replacing that offensive line and a quarterback. And come to find out, fast forward to the season, Texas A&M's 2 biggest woes right now are quarterback and offensive line. Now, it's hard to put it all on the quarterback, even though that has not been stellar when the offensive line has been getting bullied. If you go back to that Arkansas game, they had to put 3 different individuals on Arkansas edge rusher Williams just to try and contain him, and nobody could. He had himself a day. So when I look at this game, the first thing I'm asking myself is, what are the most intriguing matchups? And the answer is quite simple to me. It's the trenches on both sides. For Alabama, I'm very interested in how their defensive front is going to go about attacking A&M's offensive line, especially in a week where Drew Sanders is not going to be playing. This opens up the possibility for an individual such as possibly Chris Braswell, Dallas Turner, King Wakuda. There are a few names we could see fill that position, but at the end of the day, I think they could have success, and getting them reps is going to be beneficial in the long haul for this Alabama defense. But across the board, Alabama's defensive front, I think, is set up for success because they are probably going to look to double team Will Anderson. When you've seen the woes Texas A&M's offensive line has had, they have got to account for 31 because he could absolutely be a game breaker in this matchup. But even past the original line, you have your linebackers for the Crimson Tide who have been up and down throughout this season. Henry To'oTo'o and Christian Harris have flashes of showing why they are such a dynamic duo, but then at the same time, there's been miscommunication, there's been lapses in assignments, and then missed tackling. This is something I think Alabama will look to clean up in this game. This is going to be a good game to do it, especially when you look at how Texas A&M's offense is predicated. They are going to have to rely on the run because their passing game has been non-existent. They've struggled getting any sort of consistent play between quarterback and wide receiver, and the only thing they've really been able to rely on with any sort of consistency this year is Spiller. Now, Spiller is a very talented running back, and that's part of the reason why I said one of the marquee matchups in this game is going to be the trenches and how Alabama is able to affect them. Because if they can take away the run, Texas A&M has had a real tough time establishing a passing game with any sort of consistency, and I think that could be a real problem against this Alabama defense, especially with the pass rush they have. But when you flip it and look at Alabama's offense against Texas A&M's defense, once again, the marquee matchup is the trenches. Texas A&M's defense has guys that deserve to be respected. They have some playmakers along that defense. DeMarvin Leal on the defensive front is a name that deserves to be respected. He had a great campaign last year and is following it up with another elite season this year. And Alabama's offensive line has been a work in progress. And because of that, this is a matchup that I am really intently keen on watching because I think it'll answer a lot. And not only in the progress of the offensive line, but last week, Alabama saw its running game really come to fruition. Is that going to be something that can carry into this week against Texas A&M? One would hope so, but now we have to wonder, what does this look like without Jace McClellan? Even though Alabama still has very talented running backs on this roster, from Brian Robinson, Roydell Williams, Trey Sanders, the loss of Jace McClellan is big because of what he provides this Alabama offense in the passing game. And because of that injury to Jace McClellan, we've heard questions is, could we see someone else hop in at running back to provide an alleviation? And one of the names that's been tossed around online is Christian Leary. And although I have no idea whether or not that could happen, it is fun to think about. Leary possessing elite speed could be an utter mismatch coming out the backfield in different sets, especially if Alabama was to run a split back set. The defense would really be in for something really tough to defend. So aside from the offensive line for Alabama, what else am I looking for in this game? And it's very simple. I think Alabama has such a mismatch at the tight end position right now. The tight ends for Alabama haven't been stopped, and I don't think they will be stopped this week, whether we're looking at Cameron Latou, whether we're looking at Jaleel Billingsley. But when they play off of each other, my goodness gracious, they are almost unstoppable. So I think the tight end play is going to be something we continue to see at a high level. I talked about the running back play, and is that something that can continue? And I think that's why I am so keen on watching this game and seeing where the offensive line is, because that's my biggest question mark for this game, and my biggest takeaway is going to be the offensive line and how they handle some of the talented Texas A&M defensive linemen. The other area I'm very interested in is, can there be more opportunity for the deep shot? Last week, we saw Ole Miss really be stubborn in their defensive formation and really commit to not being beat over top, which opened up a running game which Alabama took all day long and really punished Ole Miss for. I don't think we are going to see the same thing from Texas A&M. Texas A&M will look to be a bit more aggressive, look to get after Alabama, and because of that, there could be openings for the deep shot. Alabama hasn't been able to hit on it with the same rate that they did last year, which first and foremost, they were historic with it last year, so I don't think we need to really weigh this year's deep shot with last year's deep shot. But secondly, it's a new quarterback. It's all coming together. I think it's something that we could see with more consistency, and what a week to do it against Texas A&M in a hostile environment. I think there will be more opportunity for it, so we can see if that deep shot is really coming about. The last thing I'll say about this game, looking at marquee matchups on both sides. I think one of the matchups that's going to be huge is the Alabama middle linebacker position. You know, we talked earlier about how that position has been up and down, but this weekend they're going to be taking on a tight end that is going to be looking to get the ball. So Alabama's middle linebackers and safeties are going to be huge. That's been a position that's been up and down largely for the Crimson Tide defense through the course of this year, and I think they can really get after the quarterback, which should help that middle linebacker and safety position in covering a very talented tight end. Because outside of that, I really don't see A&M having a whole lot of opportunity to move the ball. At the end of the day, if you're asking me what my score prediction is going to be, I don't particularly think this is going to be a close game. I didn't particularly think this was going to be a close game in the offseason, and that's why I made some videos asking if you all agreed that Texas A&M would be the toughest game on Alabama's schedule. I always looked at that Ole Miss game thinking that would be the toughest game. Now, hindsight being 2020, I was wrong there. We saw Alabama chew up and spit out A&M, and Florida is a game that was much tougher than I thought it would be. But I just don't see A&M having much success against Alabama when you look at the current A&M team and how they're struggling relative to what Alabama is doing well. A&M's having a really hard time blocking, and Alabama has some ways to get after the quarterback, even with Drew Sanders being out. The guys they have to supplement that are very talented, and it's still not even to talk about Will Anderson, who's going to be on a mission. I think the end score to this game could be Alabama 38, Texas A&M 14, but with that, I am very interested in hearing from you. Let me know what your end score is going to be. Let me know your marquee matchups and what you're ultimately looking for. That's it. See ya.